there is a slight change in the plan because I'm quite busy right now. So I asked one of my friends from Delft University of Technology to join with us to tell you uh, the progress about data sharing and data privacy in Europe, especially because he's a postdoctoral researcher in Delft, and he's working a lot, I think, in many projects regarding data sharing, 2 or 3 projects, and he is right now already have position as a lecturer in Twente University in the Netherlands. But because of in the Netherlands right now is a duhur time, so he asked me to postpone until 6:45. So the presentation will start on 15 a quarter to 7. So before that, perhaps I would like to introduce myself uh, because I am a bit late joining the team teaching of this course. So I haven't. So sorry. I've got information regarding this Coil program a bit late. I thought it would be easy to change uh, about the schedule and etc. Because previously I've got my schedule on, I think, on 16 November, something like that, or no, 21st of December. But I asked Pak Dr. Muharman and Dr. Lutfi, and they told me it's okay to change into November 2, 2nd of November. But from the prodi, from the administrator, told me that you shouldn't do that because the plan is already decided with Uniten. So again, I apologize with the slight change, but I think the discussion and then the topic really related with the topic of this course, and uh, all of you can ask many questions regarding, especially in terms of research and in terms of practical about data sharing and data privacy that right now currently work in EU, especially regarding GDPR, for example, and etc. So uh, yeah, the talk would be talking about that. Maybe before we start, we are still waiting for Dr. Aga. I can tell you something about our uh, presenter. Wait, I need to check. Anyone have questions? Anyone have concern regarding today's session? Maybe from Unitan? Do you have any concern or complaint?
No.
Okay, okay, good. For my topic, I will deliver with Pak Muharman, so maybe on December. So yeah, I also have a job. No, I also have a schedule to fill in this course. So I will have a discussion with you guys with Pak Muharman. So we will be twin during that presentation. But I think it's late December. Okay. Okay. Now I will tell some information about our guest lecturer today. I need to share screen. Okay, this one. Okay, so oh no, that's not nice. That's not nice. Wait. So yeah, again, our topic today will be talking about or addressing issues in data privacy, uh, especially talking about the privacy governance in current situation in the digital age. Uh, Dr. Aga will tell you a lot about his perspective regarding a definition of privacy, for example, and then a current practice in how university organizations, companies deal with managing data privacy and also data governance in their internal, and also uh, how the data should be shared between entities or between organizations uh, with current governance, with current policies, regulations, etc. So should be a really nice discussion, but I'm still waiting for Dr. Aga. Hopefully he will join with us soon.
I'm here already.
Oh, oh, thank you. Okay, okay. So we have our presenter today, Mas Aga or Dr. Aga. He just graduated from his PhD program in Delft University of Technology, and like I mentioned before, he is now a postdoctoral researcher, also in the same research group. Yeah, Aga, yeah. And also, I think he is continuing his research in data privacy and data sharing. So without takes more time, I will give the floor to the not the floor, the presenter to you, Dr. Aga, please.
Yes. So now I will start my presentation. One sec. Let me share my screen. Nope. Right. Now you should be able to see my screen, I believe.
It's still
Right?
white.
Yeah, yeah.
display.
Okay. All right. So, you can hear my voice loud and clear, right?
It's clear, Aga.
Yes. All right. So, thank you, Mas Data, for introducing my research and my topic. So, I will start my talk today with a bit of familiar example, I think. So, I think a couple of months ago, I got this photo about prayer, so Sholat Idul Adha, just to say in Indonesia, in Ljubljana, so capital city of Slovenia. And so I got this photo, but crowded Sholat Idul Adha, and it started at 5:45 in the morning. So, and at the same time, my colleagues had happened to have a conference nearby Ljubljana. It's in the city called Bled in Slovenia. So in a bit more informal language, I share this picture and then I chat with him and I said, yeah, is there any Idul Adha prayer also in Bled? So, and long story short, there's he told me that he got a ad from Instagram. You can see the chat between me and my friend, and he said right after we had this conversation and I shared this photo on WhatsApp, he got this message on Instagram, some suggestion uh, about one influencer sharing his experience visiting every malls in every country in the world. So, and then I think his message at the last part sums it nicely. Rest in peace about privacy. So the question is how does it happen? I'm sure this is not the experience of my colleague here, but I think most of us have these kinds of experience that like we talk about something and then somehow suddenly we get any ads or any you guys watch this series called Black Mirror on Netflix? I think this is something that you guys should be familiar with. And they just released one new series, one new season, and one interesting episode that I want to discuss here about. It's the first episode called Joan is Awful. To keep the story short, the series is about one person called Joan whose life is somehow monetized by the platform called Streamberry in this episode, which somehow they create an episode about her life in a real life set. So Joan as an individual, she was surprised because her life was monetized. So it's ruining her life. And as the conversation goes in one of parts of the episode, she said, yeah, the show is ruining my life because it's my name, it's my career. So how is that even possible? Long story short, turns out it's stated in terms and conditions of using using the platform, saying that the platform can use her life once she agree on using the platform. And these terms and conditions would have popped up on her phone or whatever somewhere. And she simply click accept. So she has no idea how she was supposed to know about this terms and conditions. But she simply click accept. So Streamberry in this case, in these episodes are in clear. So the platform can use her her life as a streaming content. So this is something really surprising, yet it is really familiar because we sometimes simply click yes without having to read terms and conditions because it's pretty long, 10 to 12 minutes to read. But sometimes the devil is in detail because sometimes through this long page of terms and condition, uh, there's one small sentence that by using our app, you give us permission to use our contents, etc. So I think this sounds also familiar with us. And I think the question becomes, what is really going on here? Are we really sloppy in reading and accepting terms and conditions? So we don't really care about it? And what can these companies do in the future if in those next Netflix example, it's pretty extreme, I think. But can they do that in the future? And should we do something about it? And can we do something about it? And what should we do? Is it with technology or is it with something else? Are there any approach that we should do? Any mechanisms or any procedure that we can do to control the way the data is being shared? So this is the essence of my talk throughout this, I think, 1 hour and 1.5 hours. So my name is Wirawan Agahari. You can call me Aga. Oops, sorry. I'm a postdoctoral researcher now in the ICT section at the Faculty of Technology, Policy and Management. And I'm going to talk a little bit about this phenomena. And I think one important disclaimer is that I'm sharing this presentation, but doesn't mean that I'm the one who or the most knowledgeable here. So if you guys disagree, or you have some thoughts or some opinions about it, feel free to share, feel free to talk about it, and we can discuss together. So before we start, I want to gather your opinion about some things. So please go to this website, fifox.app, or scan the QR code and enter the session ID. And I will stop my share screen for now, and then I will continue because I want to move to the website. One sec. Okay.
Maybe can't you show the barcode a bit?
Yeah, I will share it now.
Yeah.
Oops, sorry. Wrong.
Yeah.
Wrong page. This one. Yeah. Can you guys see it now? You guys can see it now, I believe?
Yeah, we do.
Yeah. All right. So what I want to ask now is this first question. What do you expect to learn from today's talk? So I want to know your expectation and what do you think about it? I will pause the timer to give a bit more time. Maybe 1 minute. Okay. So please give your thoughts, your expectations about this, the whole lecture. And I would be happy to know. I don't see anything yet from the chat. Right? All right. All right. Still have 15 seconds to okay. All right. So I have to close the poll for now, but I get some interesting insights about what you guys expect from this talk. Maybe because you guys have some information about the poster and publications for now, so it's makes sense that you guys feel in this way, but that's fine. So let's move forward. I want to see. Yeah, okay. So let's 1 sec. I have some problems with this. Okay, so this is the learning objectives that I want to share. So after the lecture, you should be able to at least understand the complexity of privacy as a socio-technical systems. And we try in the second part of the lecture to explain a bit about possible ways to organize privacy governance in the digital age. So this is two main objectives that I want to discuss. So I think it's pretty much in line with your expectation, and I hope this stays that way. important question that I want to ask now is, what does privacy mean to you? So let's go to the same chat box, same platform. And I want to ask this question. What does privacy mean to you? And then I'm going to give you 1.5 minutes to think about, what does privacy mean to you? Maybe in a short word or in the long words, also fine. Okay. Some responses already come in. Personal data, people impersonal. Okay. Several people know. Feeling secure. Five seconds. Yeah. All right. I have to close the poll for the sake of time. So thank you for sharing your insights about what you guys mean by privacy. Most of you answered about personal data. Some of you say something about control, feeling secure. So I think most of you think privacy about as closely related to personal data, which is perfectly fine and perfectly understandable. And something about control, confidentiality, sensitive information, right? So this is nice. Yeah. So that's what you guys think about privacy, but what does literature say about privacy? Yeah. So privacy, it's basically about the desire of individuals to control or at least have some influence over data about themselves. So what you guys mentioned before in the poll is pretty much in line with some definitions in literature. It's about control. It's about data about themselves or personal data, and how we can have some influence about what kind of data, what kind of information that we should share. So privacy is actually a complex socio-technical system because it involves different stakeholders. First of all, it's about citizens, us as an individual. It's also involve commercial organization, businesses, because they can create insights, create better marketing strategy, create better product from our data. And it's about public organization because they can play a role in governing, create policies and regulations, but they can also utilize personal data about citizens. And these three stakeholders are really interrelated. So there can be some kind of friction, some kind of conflicts between these different organizations regarding privacy. So let's start with public organizations. So public organizations typically, or government institutions, typically see privacy or personal data as something that can create good purpose, but it can also lead to unintended consequences. There are two ways to see this. First, there's a tension between access to lots of personal data owned by citizens versus legal framework for using it. So there's these kinds of tension. because accessing citizens' data can improve public services, especially in the case of coronavirus pandemic, which we just experienced past 2-3 years. Now we're start to get into normal lives, but if we reflect back during those COVID times, there are lots of contact tracing apps, monitoring dashboards, Peduli Lindungi, for instance, and Digital Transformation Office by Ministry of Health, Kementerian Kesehatan. There are lots of effort attempt that based on citizen data, which can improve public services in the context of healthcare, for instance. But on the other hand, these attempts collect lots of personal data. So the government institution or stakeholders can have more and more access to more personal data, which if we view it in one way, it can lead to excessive powers because one institution, one entity can have more and more access to personal data. And this will lead to this could lead to more protests because then our privacy is harmed because there's one particular institution that can have more access to our personal data. On the other hand, we can see government as a policymaker, and there are two ways to see this. On the one hand, governments formulates policy to protect our privacy. But on the other hand, governments also collect personal data. For instance, cameras in public spaces for surveillance. And also those contact tracing apps, you can also see them as a ways to execute digital surveillance of our personal data. One sec. Okay. So some particular examples about this friction between public organizations. As I discussed before, it's about the concerns of using contact tracing applications, especially in the context of Europe. It sparks data-driven, despite the potential of COVID tracing apps, it sparks privacy and abuse fears because as one of parts of this article show, by using these contact tracing apps, government collect a lot more and more data. But there's also a fear that by collecting this data, there's a further implication for surveillance in Europe and around the world because you collect more data, then this data can be used for tracking people's behavior, people's movement. So there could be more wider implications. And I'm not talking about the case in Indonesia, for instance. Maybe some of you who are from Indonesia aware about some kind of data leaks from Peduli Lindung apps by some hacker called Bjorka some time ago. I'm not talking about this angle of privacy breaches, but it is more about the broader implications of collecting personal data. And then it will lead to more surveillance, more control over people's privacy. So how our privacy as an individual is getting harmed. Some other example, again, this example is based on Indonesia's case. So for those of you who are not residing in Indonesia, maybe you have to think about a little bit about the familiarity, maybe. So this is the example in the national train in Indonesia. Recently, they just start to implement face recognition technology for check-in in the train station. And I was in Indonesia during the summer, so sometime in July and August, and I took train from Jakarta to Bandung. And I noticed this technology, and when I look at that, my first reaction was, why? And what will they do with the data? Because if you think about it, face recognition is really deals with sensitive data, sensitive information about us as a citizen, and it can fall in the wrong hands, especially given the track of stakeholders in Indonesia who have some questionable reputation about handling personal data. So on the one hand, this is something that might be beneficial, but on the other hand, it could create further, we could ask further questions about whether this is really necessary, and especially about what the stakeholders do with the data. So this is very, very interesting. But another friction comes from us as a citizen. So from the government side, or public organization, there's some kind of friction or some kind of paradox about duality of the role of the government. But for us as a citizen, there's also some kind of paradox, which is called the privacy paradox. So we do not want governments or maybe public, private institutions to collect information about us, but we put our lives on social media. So we have some kind of sharing culture, and we want to share as many as possible. And we simply click OK by default on privacy statements without reading them. Just like the for example that I shared before. And we hardly use means that can protect our privacy. So we say we don't want governments to collect our data, we need protection, etc. But our actual intention to use data, our actual action is contradictory to what we state about privacy. And this is a nice illustration that shows how our statement about privacy is actually contradictory with our action, which is not something wrong. I'm not saying that this is wrong, but this is something that we should take into account about our statement and our actual action about privacy. Now we move to commercial organization. Businesses is typically the orientation of businesses or commercial organizations mostly about profit. So they conduct economic activities to provide innovative service for us as a consumer, and they mainly rely on personal data. Yeah. But on the other hand, there's also risk of reputational damage because data leaks or misuse of personal data. One famous example is about Cambridge Analytica, in which there's some kind of leakage of personal data, and then the data is misused by third parties for a purpose that they don't agree to. So I think this is really famous, and we should all be aware. I think this case of Cambridge Analytica really starts a momentum for us to start to be more aware about our privacy. But another example that I want to raise here during this talk is an example about a platform or an application called Lensa. You can search for it in Google Play Store or App Store. It is basically an application that can help you create wonderful image from your photo. So it's generated, it's an AI-based application that can create a beautiful painting based on your image. And what is problematic from this application is that it creates different profile, different result depending on your gender. So for a male, as you can see here on the left, it's more masculine and it's more more masculine, put it that way. But if you put it on a female, there's even an article in MIT Technology Review that says that it's really some kind of cartoonishly pornified. So it's really representing some kind of pornographic pictures about a female. So that's some kind of potential reputational damage that can create by using our personal data. And this is more about how the data is being used. And this is something that the consumers are not agreed to, but it can also goes to the direction like data leaks or data misuse in other ways. But this is just one simple example. And in general, commercial organizations use personal data for many kinds of purpose through different actions, but there are also several actions that are problematic. In the literature, it says that aggregation action, identification, insecurity, exclusion, disclosure, exposure, and also intrusion are some examples of actions that could be problematic that gets executed by a commercial organization. And if you map the data lifecycle stages into this taxonomy of privacy, we can see that as a data subject, there are lots of risks that we can experience throughout this data lifecycle stages. And from collecting information until dissemination, there are lots of risks for us to that can present some kind of breach of privacy. So we could say that our lives is not entirely there's no safe space for us as an individual with regard to information privacy or digital privacy. Now, from the technological side, there's also not only it creates new opportunities, but it can also bring new privacy challenge. For instance, deep fake technology, which can transform your face to an adult or older adults, and you can also transform your face into some kind of public figures, and it can create some kind of privacy concern because it's unclear how your data is being used, and it can also create some kind of future concern that you can mimic someone and then you can say something that this actual person is not saying. So it can create more and more conflicts. Drones, also some kind of new technologies that on the one hand it's fun because you can see the world in the ways that you cannot see before, but it can also create some kind of privacy challenge. And that's why in some countries, I think in some areas, the use of drones start to be regulated. You cannot use it in some ways, and it's only for specific purposes, etc. Voice assistance, also something that is problematic, and the issues also goes beyond privacy. It can also create some kind of bias. But by using your voice, they can use that for something else. So there's some kind of privacy concerns there. And there's also internet for everything. I have this kinds of robot vacuum at home, and sometimes there's also this kinds of concerns that because they have cameras on it, it might be that they record any interaction or any movement in our home, for instance, and they can capture and record and maybe distribute the interior of our house at some point. So it could be some kind of concerns, and it's not proven yet, but it could be something that we should take into account when thinking about privacy and using those kinds of devices. So I'm gonna give one example about ChatGPT. I don't know about the use of ChatGPT in universities in Indonesia and in Malaysia, for instance, but it can create value. It can help us in education, I think, and it presents a challenge in how we should approach educational system. But I want to give a little bit different angle that ChatGPT and privacy, it's something that we should also think about. First, we should ask this kinds of question. First is whether OpenAI as a developer of ChatGPT ever asked us whether they can use our data, not only the data, not only the consent that when we use ChatGPT, but concerned about all the data that stores on the internet. And we haven't really asked by OpenAI about how they will store and our personal information and whether they can ask us to delete the data. Because if we don't agree that our data can be used by ChatGPT, we should be able to retract our data. But there's no information or there's no agreement about that. And that question, does OpenAI use or copyrighted training data, for instance? Because if they do, they should do some kind of payment for this copyrighted content, and there should be some kind of legal agreement to it. So it's actually a bit more complex, but I think in the current practice, they don't really use that. They don't really do that because they scrape the data from the internet, and some of the data there are open, but some of the data are actually copyrighted. So that's a bit of a problem. Again, this is also related. Did OpenAI pay for the data scrape for the internet before, or did they just or maybe they just use it freely without really pay the parties that own the data? And we don't know for sure for now what kind of user information that they collect and whether they will share with third parties. There is this article in the conversation about this, so you can search for it. And I think lots of scholars or experts in privacy also wrote about ChatGPT and privacy. So I think it is a good starting point for you guys to find out, to learn more about this. Now, these kinds of technological advancements force us or force researchers to think about the evolving perspective on privacy. So in the 60s and 70s, businesses and academics started to acknowledge that information privacy is really an explicit social, political, and legal issues that we should take into account. And governments start to regulate privacy and also how what kind of fair information practices that should be conducted. So they develop some kind of framework to do that, etc. And in the 80s, with the rise of new technologies like computers, network system, database, more and more regulations, more and more framework is incorporated to accommodate the development of these kinds of new technology. And in the 90s and until around 2010, something, the internet and social media take center stage. And I think one interesting event is that the 9/11 incident. It's really changing the landscape of information exchange, private, how one nations deal with another nation in terms of information exchange. It's really a milestone to really think about how information, how we should deal with privacy issues. And now in the fourth era, we are now dealing with the rise of artificial intelligence, machine learning, and ChatGPT, among others. And this prompts some kind of shift of privacy concerns from flow of personal information to inference of knowledge using learning algorithm. I'm gonna get back to this in the next slide. So, but this is the evolving perspective of privacy. So from a simple way and even more complex now. We don't know yet what will happen in the coming years. Maybe, yeah, it's really difficult to say for now, but we expect that this evolving perspective of privacy will also happen in the near future as well. Now, the question now becomes, does privacy still matter? So in the past, the way we govern privacy is centered around data. So data-centered privacy concerns. So us as an individual, we share the data, or organization collect our data, and then organization will provide some kind of action in terms of ads based on the data that they collect. But now it's changing. because of the rise of artificial intelligence, machine learning. So what they do is that organization can use some kind of learning algorithm, yeah, through AI and machine learning, to get some kind of knowledge about us as an individual based on the information about people who looks like us. So on this side, people who look like me, and then organization can use learning algorithm to infer some kind of knowledge to provide some kind of action or target ads based on us. So even though we try to some kind of protect ourselves from privacy intrusion, for instance, we can still get some kind of other. It is not enough because organization can still learn from other people to provide some kind of insights to us. So the way we regulate privacy is different. In the past, it is about regulating data flows to prevent overcollection, unauthorized release, or misuse. But now it is not enough because what we need to regulate is inference or to prevent harmful impacts of learning algorithm or on individual autonomy and agency. So this different perspective of privacy governance is really important, and this will play a role in how we regulate privacy. Yeah. So this is some kind of checkpoint. So I talk a lot in the first part about the challenges and issues, any kinds of problems with technologies, stakeholders, and privacy. So if you have any questions for now, or you want to type it in the chat, or if the moderator, Mas Data, have some kind of questions that want to discuss first, feel free. And yeah, maybe I will give first to the moderator how we should proceed.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Aga, for the interesting perspective on the data privacy, not data privacy, on the privacy matters. I think I saw some of lecture also attend in this class today. Maybe I would like to ask Pak Muarman or Pak Basuki or from Unit 10 if you have any questions regarding the first part of the presentation. Or anyone, I would like to invite all attendants to ask Dr. Aga questions, please.
Otherwise, maybe I can proceed and then we can. Oh, someone raised.
Yeah, please. Okay, Bu Titi, please. You can ask your question. Yes. Hello.
Hello.
Yes. Okay,
Yes.
please.
Okay, thank you. My question is regarding application term and condition in application. Why are term and agreement in almost every application always present in long text? So it makes user lazy to read and often simply click without understanding what they are agreeing. And my question is, this is a trick from a developer or from company as a tactic, so user just click without so user can agree quickly without understanding the consent in term and agreement. Okay.
Thank you.
And
Oh,
first
yeah,
we change the format so user can really understand about data that we'll use in this application. Okay, is my question. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for the questions, Mbak Titi. So maybe
Sure,
you can right away answer the question.
Yeah.
Saga.
So thank you. This is a really challenging question, very interesting. I think there are two sides to see why terms and condition is always long in that sense. I think on the one hand, it's some kind of legal aspects. I mean, terms and condition, I think it's really related to the legal side of things. And I'm not a legal expert in that sense. So probably there's some kind of legal requirement that somehow how force those companies to make it as the way as we know right now with long pages, terms, and long text, very detailed, etc. So I mentioned at the beginning, it typically on average we require 10 to 12 minutes to read terms and conditions, and so I think that's one thing. On the other side, it could be also I don't know. This is very extreme way to say that it's a trick or it's a tactic, but I think the companies in general, they have good intentions. I think so. I think they should also have some kind of ways to communicate this in an easier way. But I think so far it's not something that they always do. So so there are two ways to see this terms and conditions. I think it's something that is really needed, and from the legal perspective, I think it has to be that way. But companies, I think, should do more in communicating in a simple terms to make sure that we really understand the consequences or the implication of using those kinds of applications, and whether it is something that can be done in a better way. I'm not sure, but I think in addition to having this longer text, I think again companies should have a better way to communicate and to incorporate good principles in communicating how they process the data, etc. So there's I don't think there's an easy way to really address this, but it should be something to think about. That's
Okay,
not sure if
before
it's
the
really
next
satisfying.
question, before the next question, maybe if I may add a bit from Mr. Aga answer. From the company's perspective, usually because it is the way to lower risk of the company for the further legal issues, many points have to be addressed on the terms and condition. That's why sometimes it because a lot of potential legal issue come up in the future. That's why they put all of the points in the terms and condition. I'm not sure if it's intentional, but at least in my company, we don't have any other way on putting the terms and conditions of applications that we build or we develop. That's one thing. And the second thing, I would like to ask Aga actually. Right now in Europe or in the I'm not sure, in the first world countries, is there any other way or any other practices to communicate the terms and conditions currently about the application currently? Yes. or this is
I'm
the
not
same?
yeah. I'm not sure. I'm not sure about that because I'm not aware, because I think this is more closer to the legal informatics domain. I'm not an expert in that, so I'm not sure if I should speculate on that direction. But I think the the emphasis should be, yeah, that's necessary, but there has to be some kind of additional layer of action that companies should do in better communicating. Yeah, there has to be a simpler way, simple visualization, simple illustration of how this should be communicated. So I think there has to be different layers and different additional actions by companies, because just because we say yes doesn't mean we really know everything, because you sometimes companies force us to do so. There we cannot get any benefit from it. So that's, yeah, that would be my answer. Maybe not really satisfying, but I think that's the reality we live in. Thank you.
Okay. We can continue to the next question, please. Mas Tony, you can ask your question.
Good evening, everyone, and good evening, Aga. Congratulations for your graduation. Actually,
Thank you.
yeah, I just want to share my opinion about the unconditional of this. For me, this is unfair for us, for the user. Actually, we cannot change in the term and condition proposal from the company. If we want to, if we not agree with some words or some sentence, we cannot install that application. So we force that company force us to accept that term and condition to make them legally safe, not for us actually. This is why I said that it's unfair for the user. The user have to follow that rules that company put in the terms and conditions. So if not, sorry, maybe if we company and user can make that I'm a user can change the terms and condition that company have to us, it's really good. But I don't think it cannot. This is my opinion. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Pak Tony. So I think to give a bit of response to that, I agree it's unfair. But yeah, we how do you say that? It is really complicated. It's not that I understand that it's not as simple as if we don't agree to use that application, if we don't agree to use the if we don't agree with the terms and condition of the application, we can actually not use the application anymore. But then we will be isolated from the whole world, for instance. Or let's say if there's an alternative to those applications, there's also some kind of economic principles in the like network effect, for instance, because if we are the only one who use the application and others don't use it, then what's the benefit of using the application? And then we are forced to go back to the old application. So that's I agree. It's unfair. It's like how do you say it? It's unequal level playing field. And yeah, but yeah, unfortunately, there's no really positive answer or positive response to that, because that's the reality that we live in. So I think what is important is to acknowledge what kind of risks and consequences that might happen, and then yeah, we try our best to protect our privacy in using some kind of other means to protect our privacy, which I will discuss in the upcoming slides as well.
Yeah.
So yes.
Yeah. Thank you, Father.
Thank you.
Yeah. May I respond? Can I respond that?
Oh,
Please,
yes,
please.
of course. If
Yeah. I'm the man who still believes with the idiom only paranoid will survive, actually, that including my private data. But we cannot neglect that in this era, data openness is growth rapidly. As you said that if you not agree with that, we cannot install any. Sorry, I'm still near in railway, so there's noise from the railway. Sorry.
Yeah, no worries, no worries.
Yeah, this area data openness is growth, as you said that. So that I want to ask you, but the approach, how can approach this condition that we still continue live in this digital era, but without forget our data privacy for us like that. Thank you, Pak.
Okay, so I think this actually fits in nicely to our next part of the presentation. So shall I continue that, Mas Data? Maybe that's
Ya Pak, silakan. Go
okay.
ahead Pak.
Is there any other questions, perhaps, before we start the
Yeah.
second part of the material? Any questions? If there's no other questions, I have a question.
Okay.
Is there any discussion regarding the guideline on, especially on a personal or individual level, on how to manage our privacy?
I think the guideline that we have, for instance, in the European Union, I think the most the most relevant guidelines probably refer to the GDPR, General Data Protection Regulations. I think that's somehow the most, I don't know if it's comprehensive, but I think that's the most important guidelines or rules that you can have, not only for the data processors or companies, but also us as an individual. Other than that, I'm not sure if it is translated into a more practical and a more simpler way. But if we talk about the more broader and more general, that's the way I think in terms of how business or how individuals should be aware of what kind of actions that companies can take with their personal data. So I think that's as far as I'm aware of. I'm not. I don't think there's any other guidelines or rules that consumers can follow and in a more operational level. In that sense.
So we can interpret that as like EU citizen right now, individual EU citizens right now can rely on GDPR. If they follow the GDPR, then they can assure that their privacy is well managed. Because next year Indonesian will have data privacy regulations will be actively engaged, and then we still don't know if we can rely on that regulations to maintain our privacy, because right now a lot of interpretation for that regulations, and we don't know which interpretation is the correct one. So yeah,
well,
maybe
yeah.
you can have comments on that.
Well, again, I'm also not a legal expert, but I think in general, the regulations and policies, it's really subject to interpretation as well. I'm not saying that GDPR is really free from those misinterpretation or fake interpretation of things, but I think there's also there's still lots of also debates or disagreements or what constitutes personal data, for instance. Is this safe, especially with the new technologies? There will always be debate and discussions about what constitutes personal data. So I think those kinds of debates, those kinds of discussion will always emerge with the rise of new technologies, which we don't know what will happen in the future. So that's I would say it's not the most perfect form of the regulations, but I think it's something that I think Indonesian, Malaysia, and also in Asia and Asian countries also can start to look into how GDPR is being implemented and what kind of other regulations and policies at the operational level, and how should we protect our personal data.
Okay. Shall we
Alright.
continue to the next material?
Yes, that would be great.
Okay.
Let's see. Right. So in this second part of the discussion, in this talk, I want to start it by asking you guys again about what are the possible ways to organize this privacy governance in the digital age. So please go back to the poll again, and I will open the session with adding. Yeah. So I want you guys to think about what are possible ways or what are possible mechanisms to organize this privacy governance. We talk a lot about these problems, challenges, issues. Now we're trying to think, let's think together about the possible, I don't know, solution, approaches to organize privacy governance in digital age. Any answers are possible, so please feel free to give some of your thoughts. Right, we're closing. Right. So we have 7 responses. It's pretty nice. And yeah, I saw most of the answers focus on government regulations. There's some answers about education, workshop, awareness, maybe something about as local self-reliance, maybe more about sovereignty. So it's interesting. And then there's this question about what is privacy governance. It's basically the way we organize or how we can protect our privacy in this digital age. So I think this is a very interesting. Most of you expect privacy governance in terms of regulations, but I would say on top of regulation, there are other ways. There are many other things that we can do. So in the next slide, I'm going to. So this is my take. Oh, sorry. This is my take on privacy governance. I'm not saying that this is the ultimate answers. This is open for discussions, but I think there are 4 actions other than regulations, for instance, to enforce or to execute privacy governance in the digital age. First is about mindset or principles, and I'm gonna raise the principles called privacy by design. And then the second one is about the approaches, which is privacy enhancing technologies or PETs. And there's also principle aspects on capacity building. I will show you some of them. and also in the most important thing is more about the action, which how we can do this on our own. So first part that I'm going to discuss is about mindsets or principles. So it is important for us about I mean, most of us here, I think those who attend this this lecture is mostly also students who are expected in the future to not only become the stakeholders in the companies or startups, for instance. So let's say that those of you who have an engineering background, you will become some kind of tech designers of the application. And I think what is important is to ensure that the first thing that you have in mind is to ensure the personal data is protected, the privacy is maintained. There are two ways that we can do that. First is about privacy by design principle. So in a simple terms, privacy by design means that privacy should be on top priority when you design some kind of digital technologies. So this should be taken into account from the very beginning. So not something of an afterthought, but when you design the technology, you should have some kind of proactive principles, privacy as the default setting, and respect for user privacy, focus on user-centric, visibility and transparency. So I think this is also some kind of suggestion for the curriculum or the educational system in university, that ethics or some kind of engineering ethics or some kind of privacy by design should be something that's not only taught in the later part of the education, but should be also something that you focus on at the beginning. And I think this principles of privacy by design is something that's really important and could play a role in the future of privacy governance. And one aspect of privacy by design that I want to raise is the privacy by default. So it's something about optimal privacy guarantee as default setting. So when you start using the application, it should be by default. So we don't have to do any action, but the optimal privacy guarantee is already the default setting. One example is the browser called DuckDuckGo. We usually use Google Chrome, Firefox, or Microsoft Edge from Microsoft. But DuckDuckGo here offers some kind of alternative, because by default they offer some kind of private searching, tracker blocking, site encryption. So it allows us to perform some kind of search engine or using your browsers in a safe and secure way by default. So that's the difference between privacy by default and also using some applications with no default settings of privacy. So that's different mindsets and how we can design the technology. Another example of privacy, how can we as a designer can design technology by thinking about privacy first, is about the notion of privacy nudging. This is some in the academic literature. There's also a discussion about how the deliberate design of user interface can improve privacy decisions of individuals. So some researchers they develop some kind of, if we use radio buttons, drop-down list, or expanded drop-down list, what kind of default setting that can help consumers in choosing better privacy decision? Is it with some kind of strong nudge with this kind of pointers indicates the position of the default position, or what kind of text that we show it in the drop-down list like this? So this is very, very simple, very subtle, to put it that way, but it might play a role in helping consumers making better privacy decisions. So those kind of simple actions might help consumers in creating better decisions. Another example of privacy by design is to make some kind of maybe search engine tool that focus on enhancing privacy from the start. So this is from the one of the literature. They develop some kind of search bar, and they have different features with different default privacy settings. This is the prototype, by the way. I think this is not an actual implementation, but this is some ideas of how designers can develop some kind of privacy enhancing tools in web browsers. But there's some kind, yeah. But this to show that there are some ideas on how to move forward with privacy by design. So that's the first part about the mindsets or the principles. So we should start by thinking about privacy should be the priority. But now we move to the approaches, more the technical side of things. There's an emerging technologies that can help consumers, businesses to protect privacy, and it's called privacy enhancing technologies or PETs. And it is defined as a collection of digital technologies that can permit analysis and data processing while protecting the privacy of data. There are lots of technologies out there. I won't go into really detail of the whole technologies, but later on I will focus on one technology called multi-part computation, or MPC for short, which is part of my PhD research in the past 4 years. But the point here is that there are lots of technologies that businesses can use to implement, to execute data processing and data analytics without having to harm consumer privacy. So why privacy enhancing technologies? In the past couple of years, there's a growing interest worldwide on this potential of technology, and there are different reasons to that. And this interest is not only from the technical community, but also from worldwide institutions like United Nations, World Economic Forum, and OECD. So those institutions who are not traditionally concerned about privacy and digital technologies, now they start to be aware of the potential of this technology. And at least there are 4 reasons to that. First is about the need to comply with regulations, and this presents some kind of new markets for privacy technologies. And now we have more and more migration to the cloud, so cloud computing is on the rise, and this presents some kind of higher risk for business sensitive data. And there is also the need for collaboration in digital ecosystem. So companies or organizations cannot do everything by themselves, so they need to collaborate. But by having more collaboration, there's also a risk of leakage or losing control over data. So there's a need to perform secure analytics. And there's also from the societal point of view, because this is a civic engagement, because protecting privacy is a political goal and so also human rights. So there's a strong push to leverage the potential of privacy enhancing technologies. So policymakers worldwide also recognize the potential of privacy enhancing technologies. And this is the story from early this year that US and the EU start to make an agreement to use AI in terms of collaboration. But the interesting thing here is that they want to leverage the principles of privacy enhancing technologies, because they say here that the US data stays in the US and European data stays there, but we can build a model that talks to the EU and the US data without having to leave while the data stay as it is. So this actually follows the principle of privacy enhancing technologies in a general sense. So there's a recognition from policymakers in the global setting that this technology is very relevant. And also there's examples in the policies in the European level. privacy enhancing technology can play a role in using in the analytics or statistics for the population in Europe, and they start exploring how this can be used to perform some kind of statistical analysis on the population or the GDP without having to reveal the sensitive data from the citizens, for instance. So it makes the European Commission makes it specific explicit that privacy enhancing technologies could play a role. So it's policymakers start to recognize that this technology is really useful. So yeah, this is also one of the statements from one of the reports in the UK. They acknowledge that privacy enhancing technologies can be used as a means of privacy governance, and it is the essence of data protection by design and by default required by GDPR. So this is still subject to debate, but there start to be some kind of recognition and acknowledgement that these kinds of technologies could play a role in the future privacy governance. One technology that is really essential or could play a role in the privacy governance is multi-party computation, or MPC for short. The simple terms of this technology is that it enables joint computation that can result in a meaningful output, such as aggregated statistics, without having to disclose it. To give a bit of explicit illustration, consider some kind of distribution service operators or electricity operator, like in Indonesia, PLN, for instance, which that needs to calculate some kind of capacity calculation and to do some kind of congestion forecast. So they need some kind of aggregated energy consumption data from some neighborhood, which consists of like 4 households, for instance, for the sake of simplicity. In the past, maybe they can simply ask, or they can simply gather this information and then perform some kind of aggregation. But there's a few that this energy consumption data is a private information. So by knowing this energy consumption data, companies can infer some kind of behavior of the household, which to some extent, this is a sensitive data. It's private information. It should not be easily revealed to anyone, and it's subject to privacy legislation. So PLN or electricity company cannot simply ask them and then gather this information. But with multi-party computation, we can develop some kind of application that can aggregate this information without having to reveal the individual input of the individual data of each household, because PLN is only interested in the aggregate data, but not the individual data. So in a simple way, they can perform some kind of aggregation, and then they can know that the aggregated energy consumption in this neighborhood, which comprises of 4 households, is near 5,000 watts. But they don't need to know the detail of the usage of each households. In this way, they can use this data for further analysis, while respecting consumers' privacy, because they don't know the individual data of each consumers. So how does it work in some kind of broader sense? I won't go into really detail, but you can also look into academic literature on how does it really works. But in a high-level terms, MPC works by performing some kind of splitting, combining, and computing input data, and then in such a way that data users can generate new knowledge without having to disclose underlying data. So the key here is that the data is encrypted, and then all of the each input data is split, combined, and compute in such a way to reveal some kind of computation results without having to reveal the input data. So in my PhD research, my key question is, what does MPC mean, or what does privacy enhancing technology means in general for privacy governance and data sharing? To do that, one of the studies that I conducted was to evaluate the impact on consumer data sharing decision. And I developed some kind of mock-up of data markets that use multi-party computation. We explain how this technology works, and we compare that with traditional scenario of data sharing without using MPC. And from the study, it suggests that with MPC in place, consumers can perceive more control, more trust in data buyers, less privacy concerns, and less risk. And ultimately, consumers can have more willingness to share with MPC in place. But there's no change in trust in intermediaries. So what does it mean? It means that in general, privacy preservation and decentralization in data sharing is not only societally desirable, but also can benefit business interests, because this is something that is pushed before. And MPC and privacy enhancing technologies are key enablers for the data economy, because they can feel in control of their data. But because there's no change in the trust in intermediaries, this is not the, it means that MPC or privacy enhancing technologies are not the only solution, not the ultimate solution, and should be complemented with other governance mechanisms. So that's more from the technical side of things. Maybe it's a bit too much to understand for now, but I'm open to have discussions later on. But the next part is the capacity building. So we know about the technical side of things, but we don't know so much about why it matters, why is it important. So I think it is important to have education and awareness. I think there's some points that we discussed before. The importance of education, key stakeholders on privacy and privacy enhancing technologies in general. So I'm gonna show you a bit that Meta, the holding companies behind Facebook, Instagram, and WhatsApp, they have some kind of explainer now. I think they reflect on the incident of Cambridge Analytica. Now they start to use privacy enhancing technologies, and they have some kind of explainer on how privacy enhancing technologies work. I'm going to show you a bit. So this is a very interactive illustration of how this technology works. I'm going to just go through briefly. So it provides some kind of explanation of what technology is about, and they show that with multi-party computation, people's personal data remains private while still allowing platforms and publishers to collaborate with advertisers. So this is a very interesting illustration, and I encourage you guys to look into it and think about whether this is really a good explanation or not. So at least Facebook, they start to recognize that they fail to properly protect consumers' privacy in the past, but now they start to think about communicating these kinds of technologies in their platform. Okay, so I'm gonna skip to there. Other than that, from our project, from my PhD research, one of my master students developed some kind of video explainers on what is multi-party computation, how does it work. So it's really, we try to put our effort on how this explaining to general audience on how this technology works. Another way is to for decision makers like government institutions or for businesses is to leverage the growing number of adoption guides of privacy enhancing technology to help decision makers in choosing the appropriate technologies. So there are lots of privacy enhancing technologies out there, not only multi-party computation, and the suitability of the technology really depends on what kind of objective that you want to take. And I'm going to show you again. This is one example of pets adoption guide developed by Center for Data Ethics and Innovation in the UK. So there are different questions that you can ask from this adoption guide. For instance, what kind of which of the following best describes your intended use of data? For instance, you want to share just the raw data or just the insights, or you want to collaborate with multiple data partners? And then based on your answers, you can say you should consider different kinds of technologies. And for this one, and then there's further questions. Sensitive information is to be included, for instance. Yeah. So yeah, that's just an illustration of how technologies, different technologies are relevant depending on the use cases. But I think policymakers, decision makers, organizations, businesses should start to leverage these kinds of decision tool to help them in making better, to incorporate their privacy technology into their businesses or platforms, application, and so on. So, okay. Now, another way to enhance capacity of consumers and businesses to use these kinds of how do you say it? There are lots of videos and tools and informations that is available on the internet, and there are lots. For instance, there's this how-to videos by some kind of non-government organization called Voices of Privacy. They provide some kind of recommendation or some kind of explanation of how can we protect our privacy on iPhone, on Facebook, on WhatsApp, on TikTok, etc. So there are lots of privacy features that we can leverage, that we can use to protect our privacy. So please explore those kinds of features and start to think of to what extent you want to protect your privacy. And that's I think it's a good starting point. So the features are there, and now it's up to us to really use them. And this brings me to the fourth point. It's about action, to do it yourself, because we as a citizen, as an individual consumer, can use the technology ourselves, to protect our personal data. For instance, the Google Street View privacy feedback. This is by the way, this is the figure of my university in TU Delft. So if you can see here, there are lots of cars that are blurry in the license plate because they don't want to be identified from this license plate. They consider this as a sensitive information. So to do this kind of privacy feedback, we can click at the bottom, report a problem, and then you can see here what kind of parts of the image that you want to report, and why you want to report this image, because maybe this is car, a home, your face, or a different object, or maybe something about the quality. So that's some example that I think it's interesting to show example. For instance, here in Telkom University, I just search email in the morning. And here, there's also some kind of, lots of cars with license plate that are blurry. But if you want to report a problem, for instance, you can also do that. And here, we can do it ourselves. What kind of things that we want to report? Maybe car, and then you can mention what kind of, what's the license plate, and then you can provide yourself. So this is a simple way to show that we can protect our privacy, and there are lots of ways for us to protect our privacy. And an extreme example is in Germany. So if you search parts of the country in Germany, this is how it looks like. They really care. They're really conventional, very traditional about their privacy. They're really protective about their privacy. So in some parts of the country, even in the middle of nowhere, you cannot really see the house. You cannot really see here. So it's really they really utilize the feature of privacy feedback. So this is in the extreme examples. I don't think in other countries it's really like this, and in Indonesia, I don't think and in Malaysia, I think there's not also the case. But this is more about the extreme example to show that how German people are really protective about their privacy. There are other forms of governance beyond those that I explained before. One example is about the digital pillory or shaming. Maybe the term of shaming is pretty negative, but that's something that we can do as a citizen. And this is one example on Twitter, or X as we call it now. This is one of the cybersecurity experts on Twitter. He mentioned that there's a data breach in Dukcapil data, and yeah, he specifically tagged Dukcapil to show that this is their failure and to do some kind of shaming in the digital form, that they are incapable of protecting privacy of their citizens. Civil society organizations could also play an important role. This is some of the CSOs in Indonesia that advocates the importance of protecting privacy, especially to policymakers, and they really listen to our aspiration as a citizen. So if you have any concerns, please report and share it to them. I think they will be very happy to listen and then advocate of your concern. Yeah, because this is the example in Indonesia. I'm not sure about the example in Malaysia, but I'm pretty sure they have also different civil society organizations that focus on these kinds of issues as well. And there's also other ways of governance in terms of privacy and cybersecurity business models. So the focus of those companies is to think about how privacy and businesses can go hand to hand. So these kinds of companies, they offer cybersecurity services to companies so they can better protect the privacy and cybersecurity aspects of their business process. And media could also play an important role. These are two series or two films that you can watch on Netflix, about the social dilemma and also the Great Hack, to raise awareness about how privacy is really important to us. I'm not sure if we have those kinds of films or series in Indonesia, and in Malaysia as well, but I think filmmakers could also start to think about raising awareness of privacy in Indonesia and Malaysia, for instance. So, and I think I talk a lot here about issues concerning privacy and some ways or some solutions to deal with it. Then maybe some of you might ask, why do we really have to think about this? Why such a fuss, and why bother about those kinds of things? I think this word sums up a bit nicely, because you cannot really remove what has been shared online in the past, but you have decision power over your future digital journey. So what happens in the past, it stays in the past. We cannot really do something about it, but in the future, you can have we can do this. We can implement those kinds of privacy governance, because we can have decision powers of our future digital journey. So I think it's really important to raise awareness about it and then do something about it. So I have to check. Do I have everything now? Yeah, I think I'm gonna keep this question part until the end of my lecture. But before I conclude, I was wondering, what have we learned? I want to know, what have we learned today throughout this lecture? So again, I want to ask everyone's opinion here about what do you think have we learned so far, and then I will also conclude with my summary of this whole lecture. So please go to the poll again, and then I will give a bit more time to this. 2 minutes, and please fill in the any response or any insights that you have learned so far in the past 1 hour or so about the insights about the whole lecture. Okay, 15 seconds. Yeah. Thank you for 13 responses that I received. I think lots of interesting responses. I will provide the summary of this, and then I will share the slides to Mas Data before, so that you can also get some insight of what you have filled in. All right. So it's very interesting. Thank you for everyone's responses. And to conclude what I've learned from my side, I think I already summarized a little bit that privacy is really a complex socio-technical issues involving different stakeholders, citizens, governments, and businesses, and with different and often competing interests. And the rise of artificial intelligence, machine learning have shifted our focus of privacy governance from data to knowledge. And my proposal is to approach privacy governance in 4 ways: through mindsets, principles of privacy by design, approaches with privacy enhancing technologies, with capacity building through explainer and adoption guide, and of course with action to do it ourselves. And my last point is that emerging technologies like privacy enhancing technologies could play a key role in future privacy governance, as I showed through my PhD research. But this should not be seen as the only way to address privacy concerns. So we should not rely only on technology, because there are other ways that should be that should go hand in hand, also with technologies. So to finally conclude, I talk a lot about privacy governance, privacy in the digital age, but my view so far is really based on my understanding in the European context, in the global context. So I think question becomes, can we transfer this knowledge to the context of Indonesia? And so this is something that might be interesting to discuss. So let's discuss throughout Q&A. So thank you for your attention. And if I hope this lecture is very useful. If you want to reach out to me, please contact my email, my LinkedIn, and some ResearchGate account. And This presentation, parts of this presentation is based on my YouTube project that I participate in. So feel free to visit the website of the project. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Aga. So I would like to invite again all of the attendants to raise questions if you have any, please. I think Dr. Aga mentioned on the last slide that his research and his materials today actually is quite nice if we can also implement it or adopt it into Malaysian and Indonesian context. So maybe we can learn something about the practice in Europe and to adopt in the part of I think what right now I'm still missing is the relationship between the privacy approach and the culture on the each country. There may be a relationship in that sense. So please, anyone, if you have any questions. There is a questions. Anyone?
I think while waiting to the questions, it's interesting to respond to your point. The last point about the relationship between privacy and culture. I think this is indeed correct because I think in the developing countries like in Indonesia and I'm not sure if I can say Malaysia is developing countries, but yeah, in the Asian countries, for instance, privacy is not seen as some kind of priority issues because, put it simply, we have other more important things to think about. So that's why I think, as far as I'm concerned, if I read or if I heard discussion about digital economy in Indonesia, the vision of digital economy in Indonesia, it is privacy is barely mentioned because the priority is more about the economic growth, employment, GDP, those kinds of potential. But we barely talk about privacy, and I think it is to some extent understandable because there's no tangible benefit that we can see from protecting our privacy in that sense. But I think there are some momentums also in Indonesia, for instance, with lots of data breach these days, this past year also. I think there should be some kind of shifting perspective on the importance of data breach. The importance of protecting privacy and how we can realize privacy governance in developing countries. But I think the relation between privacy and culture is something that's worth investigating in the future. So.
Okay, we have two people raise a hand. Maybe I will start with Mas Tony, please. Tony.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, in my opinion, this framework, I think this is a framework from Aga is very good and very open mind for me that you can create some framework for us to create some that privacy awareness for us. But if we can implement this, of course we can implement. But if this will run successfully, I don't think so because some people, especially in our government, they don't think that data privacy is not important. They don't think it's important for the data. The example for the example that the data leak from BPJS worker, but more than 10 million data is leaked. And nobody, no institution that take responsibility for that. It takes picture that they don't care about our data. So, so for me, that there is no important that how good that was the framework that is implement. If the mindset is not the mindset still think that the data is not important, it is useless for us to implement. I think that's my opinion. Thank you.
Okay. I would like to add Mas Tony points. So
Yeah.
he raised I think a good point. I think at some point, especially Indonesian government doesn't really understand the impact of the privacy violation. So when they do, this is my assumption, when they do the cost benefit analysis to implement the some kind of privacy techniques or to manage privacy, the cost is quite high compared to the perceived benefits of managing the privacy. That's why at the end of the conclusion is we will discuss the privacy later, because we have to, as you mentioned, Dr. Aga, we have another other important things to do before we deal with the privacy. Please,
Yeah.
your comments.
Yes, I think I agree. And interestingly, this is not something that's happened also in Indonesia. I mean, in the global setting, businesses still also see privacy as, they don't see privacy as a compelling value proposition to implement. So that's why the uptake of privacy enhancing technologies, even though it has a potential, has clear benefit, but the uptake is not so much for now. Yeah, that's because businesses still they don't see yet that privacy is a really compelling value proposition for them. So this is a challenge, and one key point that I raised in my PhD research is that probably those developers of the technology, the developers of privacy enhancing technology, should start framing or promoting this technology in a different way. Instead of promoting this technology as a privacy tool, they could promote this technology as a data collaboration tools, for instance. Because privacy enhancing technologies like multi-party commutation can facilitate data collaboration within different actors, different stakeholders, different organizations to create value from the data in a safe and secure way. So that's one way to enhance the uptake of privacy enhancing, and maybe by framing it that way, organizations, government institution could see, like Indonesian government maybe could see, oh, we can collaborate with businesses in a safe and secure way, and create to achieve some kind of new economic goals, for instance. So maybe those kinds of things can create value, can create better value for businesses, and yeah. But I think in Indonesia, I don't know in context of Malaysia, but I think in Indonesia, one of the key aspects that we need to raise is more about the mindset, the principles that we want to bring by using the technologies or approaches. So that's why I think the first thing about privacy by design, that should be something, and awareness should be something that comes to the policymakers and organizations first, before we talk about the technology, or another approaches, because it can come later, and there are different ways that we can use. But I think principles, mindsets is very important from the start. Thank you.
Thank you. We can move to the next question, please, Mas Rafian.
Okay, thank you for the reception. I want to answer is about education about data privacy. Can my voice into Zoom? Can hear my voice in Zoom? Okay. I want answer about I want question about data privacy to be is important to become subject study to from small level of study like elementary school, because many my brother friend is still 10, but they are play online games and social media with toxic time and functionality management, and more child in Indonesia play it, or maybe must become subject study in elementary school. Thanks.
Okay, it's a really nice question, I think, and I think the even nicer question would be, how can we manage to make the privacy subject is interesting for children. Dr. Aga, maybe you can have comments on that.
Yeah. So the question is about, how can we make privacy more interesting subject? This is a challenging one, I have to say. I mean, it goes beyond the understanding of privacy itself, but also, it's also from the educational perspective. I mean, it's also about conveying the message and approaches. Conveying the message on how privacy should be protected and etc. So I don't have I don't have a definitive answer to that for now, but it might be something that I should think about. But I think this requires more interdisciplinary approach, I would say. I mean, privacy is more about technical terms. I mean, I have an engineering background myself, so my understanding is more about the engineering part. But I think we can also have some collaboration with those those in the psychology background, educational development background, to think together on how we can raise awareness about privacy and privacy governance, how we protect our privacy from the early age. So, so thank you for raising these issues, and I think I think there are lots of research about the privacy awareness in toddler, in early age. I don't know the results because I haven't really read that, but I think that's something that we should start to look at and then build some kind of collaboration in the multidisciplinary setting. Yeah.
Do you have any follow-up question, Mas Rafia?
Okay, answer is answer my question. Thank you.
Okay. Okay. We have a question on the chat box. What kind of from Shiva Wijaksana? What kind of infrastructure is suitable to be implemented in Indonesia to protect people's or citizens' privacy? If you can relate to infrastructure, privacy infrastructure in maybe in EU or in the Netherlands.
Okay. I think one of the key principles in Europe is that what I understand is that they want to minimize transfer data from EU to, for instance, to US. And so I think that could be a starting point, and how, in a way, that how data can stay within Indonesia or within Malaysia, for instance. Or maybe if we have some kind of agreement within Southeast Asian countries, then maybe you can have some kind of agreement that data should stay within Southeast Asian region, for instance. That could be one way. I think there's a conversation about building data centers in Indonesia with a view of ensuring data sovereignty, so data stays in Indonesia and not moving somewhere else. And there's also an attempt to some kind of force big tech company to build data centers also in Indonesia. That could be a way, I think. I don't know if it will be successful or not, but learning from experience in Europe, they have some kind of strategies to build on that, and how Europe can be more independent than US. So that's why they have some kind of EU vision for the digital European vision on data. So how the data how Europe can build the data economy and in an independent way without having to rely on big tech company which is based in the US. So that's one way I think. Yeah, I think another way. I'm not sure if there's another way for now because I mean in terms of the infrastructure itself, Indonesia also have different challenges with different islands, etc. So I think building data center in Indonesia itself, it's I think interesting starting point, and then I think we can move forward on how we can, yeah, for instance, leverage these privacy enhancing technologies to build collaboration within different institutions in Indonesia, for instance. So I don't really have definitive answers to that, but I think what Indonesia is trying to do now, but building their own data center local, could be a good starting point. Thank you.
Okay, I would like to ask Shiva Wijaksana if the question is enough. The answer is enough to answer your question.
Yes. Yes, thank you, Mr.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, regarding the infrastructure, yes, you mentioned a lot of good points, Dr. Aga. So in Indonesia right now, we are building PDN, Pusat Data Nasional. We actually the government currently built into zone. The first one is in Batam, and the second one in closer to Jakarta. I'm not sure Cikarang or Serpong, but it's still ongoing development. Indeed, they built it to maintain the data residency and data sovereignty. Data residency is the data should be in Indonesia. Data sovereignty is more like the only one who can access to the data is Indonesian government. Even if the data is stored in the another country, but the only one who can manage or to access to the data is Indonesian government. So data residency and data sovereignty right now is also ongoing progress in Indonesia to maintain the data sovereignty and data residency. And I think they got challenged from many hyperscalers, the public cloud providers as well, because it can limit their business here in Indonesia. But we'll see which one conquer the debate. Okay. Anyone else have questions? Okay, so if there is no other question, I would like to ask all of the attendants to give appreciation to Dr. Aga for the lecture. So thank you very much, Dr. Aga, for your insights and for your sharing in this class, in this lecture. Hopefully, we can continue to have a good discussion later in the future. Maybe you can give another guest lecture, maybe in another course. I will ask you. Of course, I will ask you for that.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you very
Looking
much.
forward.
Also for your time.
Yes. Yeah.
Oh,
So yeah, this is just one contact. If you guys want to reach out to me, please let me know. Then I will be happy to respond if I can respond. Thank you.
okay, and the material will be sent will be shared in the group later after this class. So you can see the contact of Dr. Aga later also in the material. So I think we can close this session today. Thank you very much for all of the question, all of the discussion. Thank you for students from TELU and also from Uniten. I will now I will close the class. Thank you very much. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi
Thank you so much.
wabarakatuh. And
Thank you so much.
good
Waalaikumsalam.
afternoon.
Thank you so much.
Good evening. Yes.
Good
Thank
night.
you. Thank
Good
you.
evening.
Good night.
Good evening all.
Thank
Thank you.
Waalaikumsalam.
Yeah.
Good
Thank you very much.
night. Thank you.
Waalaikumsalam.
Maybe we can discuss on the chat. Okay, yeah. Thank you
Yep.
again.
Thank you.
Assalamualaikum.